But personally, I think the pure art, it's coming from people, not from the machines. I think what machines cannot do is to create real emotions, because nowadays I think everyone is just listening songs or part of some songs. So maybe the whole album is too much for people in that time. It's not always fun when you have worked with these guys over 20 years, but mostly it's really easygoing and relaxing.
Borderland is the first fruit of collaboration with Jacob Hansen, having worked with Jens Bogren before on the last three albums. Do you remember the first moment when you heard those new mixes, and did it feel like the same Amorphis to you?
Well, it sounds amorphous. Of course, it's a little bit different, but still the sound is there. And of course, you don't know what to expect when you start to work with a totally new guy. But we had some great stuff. We have heard some great stuff from the guys from different bands who've been working with Jacob. And so we trusted that he will be a great choice for us also. And that was the reason why we choose him. We did 3 albums with Jens, and after the latest album with him, I was pretty sure that he's not going to do any albums. I thought he's going to concentrate working his studio and doing plugins and stuff like that. But I think nowadays he's doing still some productions. So I don't know what he's doing now. But yeah, it was a good choice to work with Jacob. He's really friendly and really creative guy. And I'm really pretty happy that we started to work with him. And yeah, he's a great guy overall.
Yeah, how did the process differ with him compared to working with Jens before? Was there anything tangible or intangible he brought to the creative process that you feel wasn't there before, maybe?
I think he trusted us a little bit more as a band. I mean, he didn't do that much pre-production for the songs. When we started, we had like 25 songs or demos, and we sent it all the stuff for him, and all the songs were at that point without any vocals. So he picked 13 songs altogether, and then we started to work with those 13 songs as a band. We wanted to give him a chance to pick the songs because he's a producer, and sometimes when there is 6 persons in a band and everyone has their own favorite songs, it's a little bit messy situation to pick up the songs. But yeah, Jacob picked his favorite songs, and we started to work. We started to rehearse, and I started to compose vocal lines. And I did some pre-production here in Finland with 2 guys, 2 Finnish guys, Jonas Olsen and also Matias Koski. And I also recorded all my stuff here in Helsinki. I went to Denmark to Jacob's studio. We recorded drums there as a band, so I hang out there like 3 or 4 days. So I had a chance to saw the studio and how he is working there. It's really fancy and nice studio with all the great stuff, instruments and lots of amplifiers. So it's a proper studio. But I did all my stuff here in Helsinki. He wasn't that picky with the music. Of course, he had some ideas, but I think the main ideas were already done before we started to record the final album. I think you can hear his work when you are listening to final mixing. I think that's the biggest thing that you can hear. Yeah, it was nice to getting to know the guy. As I said, he's really friendly and had a great sense of humor. So it's really easy to work with him.
Great to hear that. Yeah, you can definitely hear it in the final mix of the album, I think. You mentioned there being 6 guys, and obviously a lot of different creative currents in the band, I assume, exist. So how do you feel these tensions in the band, if they exist, how do they shape the music?
I think the positive thing is that we don't have any problem to have a material for the album. I think some bands might have a problem to get enough songs for the album, but as I said, we had over 20 songs when we started. Actually, it's quite funny that on the final album there is songs only from Esa and from Santeri. And when we started, everyone composed something except me. I didn't compose any songs. So Jan, the drummer and bass player, Oppu, and also Tomi Koivusaari, they all composed stuff, but Jacob didn't pick those songs for the album. I don't know why, but it was his choice, and I totally respect that. So there are 7 songs from Santeri, and the rest are from Esa. We are not arguing that much as a band. We're trying to keep the good democracy in a band. It's not always fun when you have worked with these guys over 20 years, but mostly it's really easygoing and relaxing, and everyone's trying to be professional and not fighting, and there are no ego problems in Amorphis at all. So that's really healthy band in that way.
That's great to hear. One other thing that I could hear on the album, having the context of listening to your interviews before, is your singing. You said before that you've been taking singing lessons last year to improve your endurance and maintain a good vocal hygiene. So I think it shows on the album, and I wanted to ask you, what have you discovered about your voice that you didn't maybe know before during this process?
Well, me personally, it's really difficult to hear any improvement in my voice on this album. I've been taking some classes, singing classes, but I think the singing itself, it is so big thing. And when you're starting to learn it at my age, it's really a big challenge. I'm trying to be open-minded, and I'm trying to find the right way to express myself, or easier way to express myself. I think that's my main goal, trying to be more relaxed on stage. I also wanted to hit a little bit higher notes, because I'm sometimes struggling with high notes when we are on tour. Maybe someday I'll find a way to do that, but so far it's been like struggling. But it's been fun, Teacher who is teaching me, she is a little bit younger than me, like maybe 15 years younger, and she's really talented, and every time she sings something, it sounds really easy, and I'm kind of trying to be as great as she is, but it's impossible because she's been studying and doing singing almost every day during 15 years or something, so she's so talented. I hope I will learn something new, and I hope it will help me on stage also and in the studio in the future.
Yeah, have you noticed any change during your last tour with Dark Tranquility in the US? I know when learning like new vocal techniques, everything is well on the classes, but then when you go on stage, probably muscle memory kicks in and you kind of revert back to the old habits. So have you tried using some of that on the tour before, and did you find it helped to any extent?
Well, I think it helps sometimes, but maybe on tour it helps if you have a proper time to warm up your voice before the show, and you had a good sleep in the bus, and you are relaxed when you go on stage. Then it's easier to concentrate, and it's easier to be more relaxed. And then at that point you can really use some right techniques. Sometimes festivals and festival season is really busy, and you have to travel a lot, and maybe you have more stress during the summer seasons or festival season, and you lose yourself on stage just trying to survive. Or maybe you are a little bit too much into the show and you just forget all the techniques, as you already said. It's an interesting path to be a singer. I think some people just have it. They don't have to practice that much, or they are just so talented. For me, it's not like that. I'm just trying to do my best. I'm just trying to keep up some good routines, what I'm doing. And I think those routines help me a little bit, and they give me power to do the shows.
Yeah, but also it's worth mentioning that you kind of have a very difficult task of switching between growls and cleans, which is a completely different thing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
your vocals, a lot of people have been talking as a template for, I think, one of the most peculiar and fascinating things about you is how easily you switch between those two, because it's a, like I said, completely different muscles involved, completely different techniques and everything. So yeah, I think all things considered, you're doing great.
well, it's funny thing because I have talked with my vocal teacher, and we have been practicing only clean vocals, and she don't know anything about like distorted or growling vocals. She doesn't know how to do it in a proper technique, and that's one goal. I think we're gonna dive in that technique maybe during end of the year. She promised that she will try to find some information from the internet if she finds something there. I know how my body works, and if I'm relaxed, I can do things easily. But if you are sick or playing 6, 7 shows in a row, it starts to hurt my voice a little bit, and it's not that great feeling. But that's, it's part of the business.
Yeah.
It's a thing you have to deal when you're a singer, and it's my own choice that I've chosen to use both styles, and I just have to live with that.
I would like to turn our attention back to the new album.
Okay.
The term lyric collaborator Pekka Kainulainen writes,
Yes.
generations before who had to face death and destruction. So in a world that feels increasingly unstable, how do these ancient themes of survival and resilience speak to you personally today?
Well, I think those stories that Pekka is writing, I think for me personally, they're quite simple in a way. Of course, sometimes it might be a little bit a challenge to understand what he's trying to tell with those lyrics. And for me, it's just fine because I see it's like art and you don't have to understand everything. And some poems means different things for different people. But for me personally, most of the lyrics are really powerful. And I think it's nice to understand that people before us, they have been struggling with the same stupid problems that we are struggling nowadays. And at the same time, there is so much material around us. But what is important in the end is the people you love, the important people around you, and all the history they've been living. And that's about it, I think. For me personally, I really respect Pekka, and it's always really inspiring to talk with him. He's a little bit older than me. He's been an artist over 40 years, and it's been really hard for him. And it's nice to talk with him when he tells how it was with him when he started. And he just told me like a couple of weeks ago that the first 27 years when he was an artist, it was horrible. But nowadays, it's okay. People are interested what he's doing. They buy his art and they are interested what he's doing with Amorphis. So nowadays he's enjoying his life. But as I said, the first 27 years for him as an artist, they were horrible.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this because we have kids, and we were talking, is it a good choice to be an artist instead of having like real work? And we had some different opinions about that. But in the end, I think if you really are into arts, whatever is it, music, painting, or movies or something, it's a passion. And if you have a passion for something, it's almost impossible to avoid being like artist 24/7. But it's a hard work. It's a hard work. And I think everyone who is doing music for living, they can say that it's not the easiest path. But at the same time, it can give you so much. It can be a fantastic choice.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting question you bring up in 2025 with AI creeping around every pore of artistic expression. You know, we've seen like music generation AIs. We've all used it probably for emails and stuff like that. So you have decades of raw experience in your vocals and things you've had to live through. Do you think a machine could ever fake that kind of depth? And if not, what do you think the machine will never be able to replicate that we can do as artists?
Well, to be honest, I don't know how much the machines can do already. I don't know. It's difficult because, of course, everyone would like to hear bands using real amplifiers, real guitars, real drums, real instruments. But nowadays, I think most of people are using plugins and stuff like that, auto-tune, everything. So it's not like totally pure art if you think it that way. I think computers and stuff, they can be a great inspiration. And if someone wants to do everything with computers and programs, it's okay for me. But personally, I think the pure art, it's coming from people, not from the machines. I think what machines cannot do is to create real emotions. They don't understand what it's like to feel, what it's like to really love or hate or suffer. So I think you need all of that, all of the emotions if you want to bring something unique or true. And that's my opinion about it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Going back to the band, there's a big tour coming up ahead with Arc Enemy, and it's looking massive. So previously you've talked about being a family guy and like a father first. How do you personally find the balance between those two worlds, being a world-renowned frontman and being a father, the head of the family, so to speak?
Well, it's been, for me personally, it's been quite easy. But if you ask my wife, I think she has a different opinion about it. I think my kids, they've been used to it. Actually, they are adults already, so there is not that much problem anymore. I think it has been a good balance for me. We are not the most hardworking band in a scene. I think some years we played like 120 shows in a year, and that was a lot. But still, I had a time to spend time at home with my kids and my family. Comparing it to real work, like working, having a day job, I think I've been at home more with my kids than the average guy, because between the tours, I have been at home 24/7. When I started with Amorphis, I still had a day job, maybe 4 or 3 years, and that was a challenge. It started to be too much, and I quit my job. But on the other hand, I'm really happy that I had a chance to have that normal life, so I can always go back to normal life. And I totally understand how lucky we are that we can do this for a living in a small country like Finland, where everything is so small. I mean, the music business is quite small because there are only 5.5 million people living here. So we are really lucky guys that we can do this kind of music for a living.
Yeah, agree. So let's say it's 2050 and somebody finds Borderland in a dusty vinyl bin in a secondhand record store. What do you hope they hear in it?
I hope that they find something that gives them some kind of good vibes. I hope that they find that this is somehow interesting. Maybe they want to dig a little bit deeper. Maybe they want to learn something about Finland. I hope that they find some beautiful moments in the album. I think there are lots of really emotional moments, beautiful melodies here and there, and great songs. I don't know do people still listen albums at that time? Because nowadays I think everyone is just listening songs or part of some songs. So maybe the whole album is too much for people in that time. I see the album as a work of art. It's like a total thing, music and lyrics and also artwork. And I hope they find something beautiful from this work of art.
I hope so too. Next year, it will be exactly 20 years since Eclipse and since you joined the band. How do you reflect on it from this perspective, and how does the album compare or contrast with Borderland creatively and emotionally for you?
It's been a long ride. In one way, it feels it was just yesterday when Eclipse came, but at the same time, it feels it was like a century ago. So much things have happened during these years. I think our career has been growing also. When we started, we played mostly clubs. We still do, for example, in States, but in Europe, we are playing bigger venues nowadays. And it's been fun. I don't regret anything. I was really nervous and scared when I started to record things with Eclipse albums, because it was my first real album with the producer and stuff. So I was learning stuff a lot with Eclipse. And the album also gave me a lot of power to continue with Amorphis. When I first heard the whole album, I was really amazed that this really sounds good. I realized that I can be the singer of Amorphis, and I was so happy and relieved when I listened that this is not total disaster. And I was really happy that the fans of Amorphis, they also liked the album, and things really started to go forward after that.
Any chance you might planning to celebrate the release next year, maybe with playing it in full like you did with Tales, or has there been any talk?
I don't think it's going to happen because we are concentrating to Borderland. We have some plans to play some tours and stuff, and I think we are too busy to do any special tour. Maybe we could do some show, but we haven't talked about it. And to be honest, I don't see a reason for that, because the Borderland, it's a great album, and let's see. You never know what happens, but we don't have any plans for that.
Good. As a fan, I have fingers crossed at least for a few specials.
Okay.
Right.
You never know.
Thank you for this interview. It's been really a lovely talk, and
thank you, man.
See you on tour.
See you. Take care, man. Thank you.